Welcome to another amazing episode of Raising Private Money. I'm your host, Jay Connor, also known as the Private Money Authority, and this is the podcast where we talk about how to raise private money for your real estate deals without really ever having to ask anybody for money. Well, my guest today is a phenomenal capital raiser. In fact, he's already raised in his career over $25 million in private money and private capital from his investors. And we're going to dive in deep as to how he's going about that. How does he start conversations? And how does he find these people to invest with him? Well, just a little bit about my guest's background. He actually started investing back in 2012. That's when he actually had his first rental property. And then he started broadening out from there. I mean, in addition to rental properties, he's flipped properties. He's helped troubled homeowners stay in their homes. He's provided housing for tenants that are subsidized tenants. And then in addition to that, he's been in the self-storage industry. Currently, he and his team own and operate over 700,000 square feet of self-storage and even expanding on that. Well, in just a moment, we're going to dive deep into the mind of my guest and friend, Mr. Ian Horowitz, right after this.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Connor.
Well, hello there, Ian, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Jay, what's going on? Glad to be on today.
I'm glad to have you. My lands, I really enjoyed being a guest on your podcast, and I had forgotten how awesome and how rich your voice sounds here on the show. So welcome, and I'm glad to have you. You've raised millions and millions and millions of dollars in private money. But before we get into actually how you've gone about doing that, give us your backstory and, what were you doing, prior to this world of real estate investing in 2012, and what got you interested?
Yeah, we took the absolute longest road possible. We actually started as career firefighters, my business partner and myself. We wanted to be big, bad city firemen. We grew up being volunteers at the local volunteer firehouse and decided that was a career path that we wanted to choose. My business partner got hired a little bit before me, and in 2007 and 2008, respectively, we got hired for the city of Baltimore. You ever watch The Wire? It's all true. You saw the riots that happened. That's where we worked, the heart of West Baltimore. And, very quickly did we find out that, it's an amazing job, and what we do for a living, helping people in a time of need, their absolute worst moment. We're there helping people financially. It might not be the best choice, right? Like, barely getting out of high school, the career paths that we took, college wasn't in our future. It was a great, amazing job. However, it just was not monetarily a huge win, and so working for the fire department, it was cool, but, we got hired right around the global financial crisis, and it really forced our hands to find another way. We're looking at, we get hired in 07 and 08. By 2009, they're furloughing us. By 2010, they're closing companies. 2011, they're messing with our pension system. 2012, Obamacare comes out, healthcare skyrockets, and everything just kept piling on. And, typical firemen, we would work 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights at the time. And we all had side jobs. And, we were working 8 days a week to try to make a living. You got your wife at home. We're starting to hit that age where she's like, hey, I want to have kids. And I'm like, oh my God, how do you pay for this? How do you pay for daycare? How do you pay for any of these things? And that's really what was the catalyst behind us getting involved in real estate. It was really out of a need. It was out of the fact that the fire department forced our hands with no overtime, threats of furloughs, no job security. Not to mention, you're risking it all every time you go out the door. We might not come home. And, real estate was a way not only to provide cash flow to our household, but it was also a way to create a legacy or a life insurance policy that, allowed us to support our families. God forbid something happened to us.
So why real estate? How did you get interested in it? I mean, I know why you got interested in it, but why real estate instead of some other type of, pathway to what you wanted to accomplish?
Well, because Monopoly is the coolest game in the world. No, it's really what it comes down to is, we were working 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights, and we'd be landscaping, doing construction jobs, laying tile, laying brick, whatever it was to try to make an extra dollar. But like, you start thinking about it, and you're sitting around the kitchen table with these guys that are working 40 years. And I say, hey, Lieutenant, you worked 40 years. There was a lieutenant. He worked the riots in the 60s and worked the riots in the early 2000s. And it was like, hey, Lieutenant, like, what are you doing when you go to retire? He's like, well, I'm going to go work for Walmart or Home Depot. And I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, there's got to be a better way. So, and it was also like, hey, my wife wants to have kids, and God forbid something happens to me and I start a landscaping business or I start a construction business and I get killed. I get hurt so bad that I can't complete a job. And my wife's left with this burden of these people that we took deposits for to go do jobs. Like, that's not something that I was interested in doing. But what I did know was, if I wanted to work a 30-year career and I bought a piece of real estate, and let's just say it was worth $100,000, and I could buy 10 houses, that'd be $1 million worth of houses. And over 30 years, if they all paid off and they weren't worth $1 more, and somebody paid me to pay them off in that same time horizon, and I made a couple $100 a month all the way through this process on each one of those houses, I'd have $1 million when I retired. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And that's how I picked real estate. It was, while I'm asleep at work, I could make money. Like, how could I make, the only thing that I could think in my head is like, around the clock, 24/7, how do you make money? Well, if someone's renting my house, every month they rent my house, they are renting it for every second of the day. I'm making money every second of the day. And that's really what was my catalyst behind real estate, and really what interested me. And also, it's such a tactile asset class, right? Like, there's nothing cooler than driving by, like, yo, I own that building, or yo, I own that house, or I renovated that house, I flipped that house, I wholesaled that piece of property there. And those are all benefits that we learn from investing in real estate over time, of why real estate's so cool.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. So let's talk about the funding of your deals when you started out. So when you started out, you had rental properties and you went to doing some flipping, et cetera. When you started out, how were you funding your properties, or how were you getting them funded?
Yeah. So let's just use the first deal that we ever did. The first deal I ever did, I bought it for $25,000, put like 25 grand into it, and maybe it was worth like 75 grand. When we were done, we got $1,250 rent. Cool story, right? But I didn't know any better. So the very first deal I did was I borrowed hard money at like 16% and 6 points. And I didn't know any better. I put like the last 5 or 10 grand I had in my pocket into the thing, and I did it. And then, but I was able to refinance it. And then we did it again. And I got a little more savvy and said, oh, well, there's a hard money lender that does it at 12 and 2. Cool. Let's use him, and he'll give me 100% financing. And it was like, well, I borrowed money from that guy, but like, why can't I borrow it from my friends and family? And there were situations where the hard money lender, as he got more into the business, he was like, well, I know I lent 100%, but how about I lend you like 90%? And I was like, okay, well, I need 10 grand here or 20 grand there. So I would go to my friends and family. Yeah, remember, we work in a firehouse, like all type A personalities. Everybody's got an opinion on everything. Half the dudes like, you're an idiot. I don't want to curse on your show, but you can imagine the explicitives that went with those words. You're an idiot. You're just going to be a slumlord, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that. And I was like, all right, well, we're not going to talk to them guys. But then there was the other dudes that were like, yo, dude, that's the coolest thing in the world. How do I get involved? I don't want to deal with the drama. So a friend of ours bought a house. We showed him the whole thing. He's like, screw this. This is not for me. How about I just give you 10 grand on your next deal? So we would go to him for some gap funding. And then that started to grow. And it really took us to our first commercial asset, and I'm only talking about the front side of like raising the capital. Like, how do we do it? We would tell everybody about what we do. There's a reason we have a podcast. There's a reason we come out here and talk to people, because we want people to know what we're doing and we want people to be comfortable, right? So that being said, the more we talked about it, the more we showed people what we were doing, the more people wanted to get involved. And then when we bought our first really big commercial asset, we were raising $1 million. And mind you, I had about $1 million of this like debt gap funding money on hand already. And when I asked those people to invest in equity, they're like, dude, you're crazy. I'm not getting in. We're not doing that. There's no way. You're out of your mind. And then guess what? We did that first deal, and it's the law, it's the law of the first deal. Next, the floodgates open and we started getting good returns on these things, and boom, here we go. We're off to the races. And really, it's just doing the right thing every day, getting up, putting the property first, executing on it is really what allows you to have success. And tell everybody about what you're doing. If you're not proud about what you're doing, and look, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be days you don't want to talk about it. But if you're really excited about what you're doing, you should want to tell everybody. And the more you tell people about it, the more interested, and the more they see your excitement, the more that they're going to want to get involved. So still to this day, we love every property that we're doing. It's so exciting and so fun. But to go backwards, when we first started borrowing money from our friends and family, it was like, hey man, you got 10 grand. Cool. And it was like a handshake deal. And then it turned into a note, and then it turned into a more formal securities document. So like, as we matured in the business, our operation matured side by side with it. And so, if you're just getting started out and you're raising money, there might be that deal where you handshake with a friend. And then that next deal after that might turn into a little more documentation. A little more documentation turns into more sophistication, but all those documents are there to protect you and allow you to have success. So.
Yes. So it's been my observation after interviewing hundreds and hundreds of guests here on my show that raise private money. Everybody's got their own story that have raised private money and are raising private money from investors. Something happened that actually forced them to start raising money. And I think if I understood your story correctly, what motivated you to start raising private money is you needed gap funding, i.e. down payment money. You had hard money lenders that were loaning you money, but then they changed the rules. Of course, there's an interesting topic right there, the rules. When we're borrowing institutional money, the lender makes the rules. In this world of private money, we make the rules. We set the interest rate. Instead of asking for a mortgage, we're actually offering a mortgage or an opportunity. But did I hear that right? What motivated you to start raising private capital was you needed it for down payment money. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. And you make an interesting point. He who controls the gold, right, is in charge. But you're right, 100%. It was the opportunities that we had to offer to people, and it was gap funding. Dude, we started buying real estate in 2012, 2014. We started getting our feet wet. 2014, we're off to the races. We didn't know it was the absolute bottom. And dude, it was just like drinking from a fire hose. You couldn't get enough money. You could wholesale 10 houses and still not have enough cash to do these 20 projects we had on the other side. And it was a warehouse, dude. And we would just crank them out. And as fast as we had cash coming in, pour it back into a rental asset. But everybody knows the game here. It's cash flow management, and we needed the gap funding. But you know what we realized looking back on it? Those gap funding opportunities when we felt dead broke was really, like you just said, an opportunity that we were able to offer to our friends and family that they did not have anywhere else to earn a high rate of return, 8 to 10%. They're like, oh, dude, you're the best dude ever. It's like, yeah, that 8 to 10%, it's like, but you guys don't understand. That's way cheaper than what I'm paying over here. So it's a win-win for everybody. But yeah, 100%. We started with gap funding and worked off of there.
Right. Now, you said something interesting just a moment ago, and that was, you said, you just need to tell people what in the world it is that you're doing. So let's dive into that. You tell people what you're doing, that attracts them to be interested in what you're doing. But over these years, what have you found the best ways to actually get the word out to people as to what you are doing?
It's you watch all Hermosi's super popular, all these dudes out there are super popular, like find your medium. And I'm like, yeah, dude, whatever. Like, obviously, or maybe not obviously, talking is my medium. I thoroughly enjoy picking up the phone, talking to people, getting out there, doing the podcast, so with that being said, you really just need to find a medium that works for you. For me, it's getting out on podcasts, talking to people, doing interviews on our podcast, and hosting live events. And those live events are, dude, still just the local meetup, right? I enjoy it, right? And that's where I meet all my contacts. For other people,
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, for other people, it's writing's their best medium. So they're trying to get people into an email database. They're trying to, send them as much information. Their social media posters. That's not really my jam. And I mean, I've spent a lot of time, energy, effort, and money to try to build an Instagram and a social media following. But honestly, I'd rather just have the 100 right eyeballs than having 100,000 eyeballs that don't care about me. And I don't need that ego stroke. What I do like is actually making connection with people. And when you can make that connection and figure out how to resolve their problems, like there's nothing cooler. And I'm sure you've experienced this. We've been able to help people retire, right? For the longest time, I struggled with quitting our W-2 job as firemen. And the day I did it was the coolest thing in the world. Our business exploded. And now when I speak to someone and I feel that energy of like, yo, I want to quit, or like, I want to figure out a better way. And then I get to watch them quit and do that. That's equally as motivating as buying another property. And that's what keeps me going. But that's why I'm so excited to tell everybody about what we do, how you can do it. Go out there and swing the baseball bat. We're two dumb firemen. So if we can do it, anybody can do it. Go out there and do it.
So I want us to dive in. So if you're listening to this show and you have an interest in raising private money for your real estate deals, we're getting ready to dive in on that right now. But in addition to that, if you are listening to this show and you're interested in being just a passive investor, you just want to sit back, get high rates of return safely and securely, and be a private lender, we're going to talk to you about that opportunity here in just a moment. But first, Ian, I want us to dive into this meetup strategy. I've had hundreds and hundreds of guests here on the show that talk about how they raise private money. I have not had one. You're the first. In hundreds and hundreds that have a meetup with the purpose of making opportunity known to individuals that how they can be an investor, how they can be, a private money lender. So I want you to go over step by step what happens. How did you start the meetup group? How did you get people to join your meetup? How often do you meet? Why do they come? And what happens at your meetings?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we should get out of the way is like, why do you want to do it? Like, why do you want to do a meetup? Why do you want to do a podcast, right? For me, it turns into credibility, and you're the authoritative figure at the front of the room, right? Like right now I'm on Jay's podcast and I'm out here talking about raising private capital. I'm being exposed to a new audience that allows me to then be the authority figure in this role of talking about raising private capital side by side with Jay, showing his credibility that he has all the friends in this space that actually raise private capital. We have a win-win here. So while we're doing this online, I went back recently and said, man, like what worked for us back in the day when we first got started? Well, my podcast co-host, Jason from Hard Money Bankers, and myself, we used to run a meetup and we would get hundreds of people in the door. We would meet up once a month, but we wound up with a 6,000 person email distribution list. And at the time, I didn't realize the value in it. But then as we started to grow and want to raise private capital, I was like, oh, crap. Like that 6,000 person email distribution list is huge. So if you guys want the hack, it's real simple. We go out, we do once a month. We do the first Wednesday of the month. We do it at a local volunteer firehouse up here in Pennsylvania. This way it supports the local firehouse at their bar. I host an event. The first few I usually get out there, like the first few I speak, I talk about topics that I enjoy. Like this month coming up, I'm talking about how we raised money. We bought a 76 unit apartment building with no money out of pocket on an owner finance deal. So we're going to talk about that case study and we'll have whatever, 30 to 40 people there. That's fine. It's not a huge audience. I don't need this 500 person. It's free to get in. Everything you do is free. You guys need to go out, watch Hermosi, watch Russell Brunson, watch all these guys out there. Dude, everybody is going to consume the information differently. Give it all away. People pay for the shortcut, and I'm not selling anything, so I don't really care. I just want to share my experience with other people, and I want to bump elbows. So we'll go do an hour meetup, and then we hang out at the bar and just talk shop, right? Like, I just know in the fire department, we would go to the bar. That's where the world's problems would get solved, right? Usually a little liquor always helps. But now it's like, hey, let's go to the bar. I'm going to present on something. Everybody listens to me, and then off we go. And then we're going to hang out and talk shop for an hour afterwards. Like this last one, I had 3 or 4 of my investors there. And then a couple people came up to me that were newbies and said, hey, I've done a couple real estate deals, but I really like my W-2 job. I'd rather just invest with someone like you. And I said, that's great. Why don't you talk to Carlo? He's here. He's invested with me. Why don't you talk to Steve? He's here with me. He's invested money with us. And then I got the credibility sources. Everybody's in the same room. And then you're never selling. You're just always educating. And that's why I like the in-person tactile meetup. And anybody that's looking to do it, meetup.com does an amazing job of driving traffic to your meetup and getting people in the front door. So like I said, we meet once a month. And my goal is to, not only meet them in person, but become the credibility and the authoritative figure. Oh, and then real quick, side by side with that, as I run out of topics, I'll start bringing in subject matter experts from the local Philadelphia area that will present. And then it's like same thing as the podcast. Hey, here's my friend. They're coming in to present on this said topic. And then I get to co-sign their experience with my audience that shows that we're the authoritative figure in the real estate space. So then when they want to invest, their first thought is, well, how do I invest? Well, I go to that meetup. I remember Ian saying something at the beginning of the meetup that they're doing a new 55,000 square foot flex space syndication. Let me hop into that, or let me call him about it at least. Oh yeah, well, let's go meet next month. Let's grab a coffee and talk about it. And then you're putting a name to the face. We're not just some BS syndicator that out here that's like, hey, come invest with me and go through my email. And then sure, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to tell you my website, right? It's the easiest way to cast the net. But in the end, I really want to be with people that I can hang out. Like our capital investors, our best demographic for us are people that we can, this is going to sound horrible, but see, feel, and touch, right? Like I want that personal relationship with people that allow us to invest. And we know that we're all on the same page. And that's why we do the meetup. That's how we do it. It's super simple. Don't overthink it. And that's what we're doing.
So are most of the people that come to your monthly meetup, are they mostly real estate investors that want to learn how you're doing it? Are they mostly individuals that want to be passive investors or private lenders?
What I will tell you is most of the people that are coming in the door have the idea that they want to invest in real estate. Either they've done one deal, they're done several deals, or they want to go and do a deal. Me personally, I want to show them, and I don't know how you feel about this one or what other people have said, but real estate's really effing hard. Like I'm really trying not to curse on your show. New Year's resolution, but it's really, really hard. And people don't realize the amount of work that goes into operating real estate. And I think when people do one deal, they kind of get caught up and like, oh, that wasn't that bad, but shit, that was a lot of work. And then they're like, oh, I'll do deal number 2. And then they're like, you know what? There's a lot of people out there that, like, I was talking to these 2 guys, they work for a solar energy firm. And they're like, look, we're engineers. And we really like our jobs and we make really good money. And we're just looking for another asset class to invest in. Well, that's my prime demographic. They've done 1 or 2 deals. They love their W-2 jobs, but they still want to invest in the asset class of real estate, but not on Wall Street. So they came there with the idea that they wanted to continue to grow into real estate. But then yet I threw them this idea of, well, maybe you could invest in real estate. And look, there's going to be guys. So it's a good mix. I'm sorry, it's a really long answer to your question, but there's a great mix of guys and gals there from sophisticated to not. And the people that are sophisticated, that's fine too, because I want the other experts in the room, even if they're raising capital. I really don't care. I want them there to give the other people a great experience, because in the end, what's the point of the meetup? It's my credibility that I put the coolest people in a room and people had a good experience. So then they're going to reach out to us to talk about investing. So yeah, we have all walks of life. However, most people are have done a few deals, a deal, or want to do a deal more than the experts in the room.
Okay. What's the name of your meetup?
It's called CRE Syndicate. So we do it. I really have a thing for commercial real estate. I enjoyed doing the online, group game, but I enjoy the in person. And CRE Syndicate really concentrates on commercial real estate. A lot of people look at single family and say, well, that's not commercial real estate, but it is, because you're buying real estate as an investment. And that's why I believe so much in the quote word commercial real estate, because we're all looking to make an investment. I just personally concentrate on commercial real estate.
Gotcha. What advice would you give to an individual that wants to start up a meetup? What are the do's and what are the mistakes to avoid?
The mistakes to avoid is to think your first one's going to be the best one. I promise you it's going to suck, right? Like it's just like your first podcast. It's not going to be good. Who cares? Just go do it. The best advice I can tell you is get out there and go do it. The same advice when people ask, how do you invest in real estate? Well, get out there and go do it. And just pick a place. Dude, I know a few people have done it where they just started by saying, hey, I'm going to have lunch at this day, date, and time in this location. I'm going to talk about real estate, and my friend so-and-so is coming with me. Whoever wants to join, great. And there was a really cool meetup when I was down in Baltimore where every Friday they would just go get lunch at the one bar and they would hang out for the afternoon and just talk about real estate. It's like, oh, that's cool. For me, I wanted something a little more formal on an evening because of my target demographic that I wanted. Like I said, don't overthink what was the best way to say this? Don't overthink how you want it to be. Just get out there and go do it. Set it up. Go hop on meetup.com. It's like $500 for the year. Sign up. Pre-plan 12 dates. Put them in your calendar. Put them on there because as soon as it's on the calendar, you're going to have to do them. Put all of them as TBD, and then just come up with January's meetup. That's it. That's all you got to do.
What does PVD stand for?
To be determined. You don't know what the topic is in February or March and April and May. Who cares? Just concentrate on the month in front of you. So that's what I do. I put up all my dates, and then I just put January, talking about how we bought a 76-unit apartment building with no money out of pocket. Cool. I don't know February's topic till I get in the room and speak with everyone and say, yo, what do you guys want to learn next month? Oh, I want to learn how to use my IRA. Cool. Let me find the coolest IRA person or whoever we use. Let me have them come here and come speak to the group, right? Like, that's how I run it. Other people like having it all pre-planned. Jay's coming into town on this month. I have to do this. Ian's coming to, like, I'm not that type of person. I just know if I have it on my calendar, I have to do it, but I don't necessarily want to try to guess the topic 12 months from now.
Ian, I got a writer downer for you. I coined this phrase, and it summarizes what you just explained, and that is get it on the calendar, because once it's on the calendar, it'll happen. So here's the quote. It's 3 words, quote unquote. Successes are scheduled. Successes are scheduled, right? Success just doesn't rain out of the clouds and say, oh, there you go, we achieved this. No, it was put on the calendar. In the few minutes we got remaining, Ian, I want you to speak to the portion of our audience that is interested in what you just talked about. And that is those people that come to your meetup that they're interested in real estate. They want to get some really nice returns, but they don't want to find deals, oversee deals, rehab deals, oversee real estate. They just want to get some really, really nice returns. So how does that work for you? And what opportunity do you have right now for people to get involved with you?
Yeah, the best thing to do is go to equitywarehouse.com, and you can really see all the case studies of different ways we've co-invested and co-lend with our friends and family. Our network's expanded past our friends and family at this point, but you can really see the case studies of how we work, because when we co-lend, they're set up in a certain way. And when we co-invest, they're set up in a different way. And it's a great way for everybody to learn and understand, because these deals fill up really fast. So like, I'll give you an example that we're finishing up the capital raise. 2 weeks ago, we just finished a purchase of a 55,000 square foot office building that we're going to convert into flex space. You know, we enjoy the storage, warehousing type space. So we're going to take an old office building that was a debt collector for a mortgage company, and we're going to convert that into a into flex warehouse. And we got a first position loan from a life insurance company, and then we're raising the rest of the capital. We put some money in, and then our friends and family are putting money in. So Generally speaking, I guess, I don't know, legally, I'm not good with all your little SEC numbers, so I don't want to get in trouble. But in the grand scheme of things, it's really simple. The way it works is you put money in, you get some sort of preferred return around the 8% mark, and then you get to enjoy the upside equity in the property. So what does that mean? You get to share not only in the cash flow, the profits, the losses. The losses aren't a good example, but the profits, the paper losses, the depreciation, right? That's the paper losses, sales proceeds, refinance proceeds. You get to participate in all these tax advantaged parts of owning in this quote unquote syndication. So that's how we work. We like to do a preferred return because we want that investment to be real to you, right? Like you put money in a deal and it's like, hey, 3 years from now, it'll be worth this. That's not tactile and real. But when you're getting preferred return distributions and you're seeing your account grow, that's what makes an investment real. So again, this is another little private capital raising tip. The more time you touch your investors, the better. So for us, we like to set up a preferred return and then everyone gets to enjoy the upside of the property. So that one's a fun one. It's out in the submarket of Philadelphia. So a really nice, stable geographical area that services the city. We're actually that one there. We're looking at renting it or it's broken up into 11 condos. So we might take those 11 condos to market to sell. So we're super excited about that one. And if you want to learn more about that, you can, like I said, go to equitywarehouse.com. Learn about what we do. Maybe by the time this podcast gets out, it might be filled up because we generally fill up pretty quick. But, go check out equitywarehouse.com, learn about us, and then we can, if it's a good fit for you, we can converse about that.
If you're listening to this show and you have an interest in getting high rates of return and doing business with a guy that knows what he's doing and has been doing it for over 14 years, go to www.equitywarehouse.com and get connected with Ian. Ian, thank you so much for joining me here on the show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. It's been fun. Hopefully I left some valuable knowledge to your audience, and hopefully everybody, doesn't matter where you're at in the chain, you took something away from it and you can go out and execute on it.
Absolutely. There you have it. Another amazing episode of Raising Private Money. I appreciate you being here on the show and tuning in. I really appreciate the likes and the reviews and all that kind of good stuff. Follow me if you aren't already on your podcast platform so you don't miss out on upcoming episodes. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and click that bell so you don't miss out as well. Thank you for joining us. Look forward to seeing you right here on the next episode of Raising Private Money.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/moneyguide. That's jconner.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.